All right, guys. So this lecture is going to be about production planning, and so kind of the steps you go through about setting up the production facilities and planning out how you're going to produce an item in the operations management. So you do some research and development for your idea for a new good and service, and we'll actually look at that process a little bit more when we talk about marketing, because that's a big part of marketing, is figuring out what good or service to make. And then we've got to design our planning on how we're going to convert that idea into a physical product or else a service, and how we're going to make that happen. And then facility planning identifies what the best way of setting up the facility is for producing it, and how many goods will be produced within a time period. So we're going to kind of start off with product lines. Okay, so let's say we're making pizzas, and we'll talk about product lines again in marketing as well. But when we're deciding how to set up our production facility and our in our operations plan, we have to decide how many different variations of a product we're going to make. So if we're talking about pizzas, a product line is a group of items that are similar. Okay, so when you make pizza, there's a whole lot of different ways that you can make pizza, different toppings you can put on them, but they're all still pizzas. So that's what a product line is a group of items that are similar. So pizzas is a product line. Calzones would be a separate product line. Subway sandwiches would be a separate product line. And so they differ. Pepperoni pizza differs from sausage pizza, but they differ in minor characteristics. And so as we go through that, you have to decide, the more variations that you decide you're going to sell, the more complex your product lines or your production plan is going to have to be, and how much larger your facilities are going to have to be. Once you've got that kind of determined, you have to come up with what's called a product design. That's an exact set of specifications from which the product can be produced. Right? If we're talking about a house, we call these blueprints. If we're talking about a loaf of bread, we call it a recipe. Okay, these are the exact set of specifications. However, in operations management, which we're talking about here, we're talking about very specific details, not just if you go and you bake a cake, it tells you to bake it for 16 to 20 minutes until a toothpick inserted comes out clean. That doesn't cut it for product design in a factory. They need to know the exact temperature to bake it at for the exact amount of time. So another example, when we talk about those pizzas, what you would find is if you go to Domino's, they put it in an oven and it's on a conveyor belt that slowly pulls it through. The oven's at a specific temperature, and it goes at a certain speed so that it stays in the oven a certain amount of time. All right, so they have it set, and every pizza they put up there is going to go through at the same speed at the same temperature. That way, every pizza that comes out is the same. All right, and it will have the same consistency, because when you're selling an item, when a person purchases it, every time they purchase it, they want it to be the same. Okay, so that's what the importance of a product design. Capacity says, all right, we design this building, we need to know how much we need to be producing, because that impacts how big of a facility we're going to need. Obviously, if we build a facility and then we need twice as much, we're in trouble, right? We're losing out on profit because we can't produce as much as we need to. And vice versa, if we build a facility that's twice as big as we needed, then we're only ever using half of the facility, but we still have costs associated with having that big of a facility. And so we want to make sure that we adequately are able to figure out how much capacity we need to be able to produce. Obviously, we're going to leave some room for growth so that we can grow, but we don't want too much idle time and space. Okay. Depending on what we're doing, it's either going to be what's called labor intensive or it's going to be capital intensive. Labor intensive just means that it takes people to accomplish this production process, and capital intensive means that it takes machines or equipment. If it's labor intensive, the setup cost is low, but the operating cost is high. So it doesn't take a bunch of time and effort to set this up, but once you got the people there, you have to pay their salaries, and that's more expensive. Versus the capital intensive, the setup cost is really high, but once it's set up, you just flip a switch every day, and so it doesn't cost as much to upkeep and take care of the machines once they're working. So, one next thing we have to decide is we need to decide what's called a plant layout. So there's kind of three different ways we can set up our production facility or our production plant. Okay, one is called a process layout. Process layout would say that it doesn't matter what order the items get done in, as long as they all get done. Okay. Product layout says, well, it absolutely does matter what order they get done in. And fixed position layout says, well, the item's so big that we can't move it from point to point, so we're going to have to send people to move around instead. And so a couple examples is if you are getting your car worked on, well, if you go in, it doesn't matter what order those things get done as long as they all get done. Okay, so you have a station for wheel alignments, and you have a station for body work and safety inspection and engine repair. And the nice thing about this is that if the wheel alignment station's open, we can go ahead and start getting it worked on, and it doesn't have to wait to go in a specific order. A product layout, where the order does matter, is like baking cupcakes. Cupcakes do matter what order they go in, and it does matter that you mix the dry ingredients and then you mix the wet ingredients. And if it does matter whether you bake it first or you mix it first. And so you're going to have workstations and there's a certain order the things have to go in order to be a finished product at the end that we're looking for. And then fixed position is like the ship. The ship stays put, and we bring all the stuff to the dock, the dry dock, and we build it all at that point. And so that's the facilities planning. So the next step is, we have to plan what the horizon is, and what are we looking at? Are we planning this for the 1 year or 1 to 3 years, or is this a 5-year plan? We have to estimate the demand that we expect when we start selling this product. And again, that goes into the capacity. Are we able to operate and meet the demand based on the capacity that we're building our facility for? And then we've got to adjust as needed to meet that demand. So that's the operations planning component of production or operations management.